This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good evening, dear friends. We're continuing with Masechta Nedarim, Daf Hashavua, Daf Chaf Vav Amud Beis. The Gemara just asked the following question. The Gemara brought a machlekes Rabba and Rava. Rabba was of the opinion that if when you find out that your father was among the people who you asered, if you would not have tweaked the neder, you just would have excluded your father, then everybody holds neder shehutar miktsasai loy hutar kulai. Only your father is excluded, but the neder still stands. When is there a machlekes? The machlekes is if you say that had I known my father was there, I would have said ploini aser, but my father is mutter. However, Rava is of the opinion that if you say that you would have tweaked the neder to pliny and pliny, everyone says a neder shehutar miktsasai hutar kula. When is there a machlokes? If you would not have tweaked the neder, if you would have said kolchem. So the Gemara says bishlama, and the Gemara brought a brisa. We're of three cases: case A, case B, case C. Case A and case B, neder shehutar miktsasai hutar kula. Case C, neder shehutar miktsasai loy hutar kula. Bishlama, according to Rabba, it's very good. We said case A and case B is talking about where you would have tweaked the neder. Case C is where you would not have tweaked the neder. But according to Rava, the Gemara says, Bishlama, case A, where we say only according to Rabbi Akiva, neder shehutar miktsasai batla kula. So we'll say it's where you would not have tweaked the neder. But the question was, what about case B? What's the case of case B? That case must be talking about where you tweaked the neder, and in that case, wouldn't everybody say that neder shehutar miktsasai hutar kula? The Ran adds that the Gemara could have asked in Rava, what in the world would case C be talking about, where we say neder shehutar miktsasai loy hutar kula? How would you ever have such a case? According to Rava, in Rabbi Akiva, we always say neder shehutar miktsasai hutar kula. But the Ran said, since we already questioned Rabbi Akiva on case 2, there's no reason to question him on case 3. So, Amar le Rava said back. The questioner was none other than Rav Papa. So now, Rava says back to Rav Papa. Rava says back to Rav Papa. Amar le Rav Papa. Ula Rabba le Rabbi Akiva minicha. And according to Rabba, is it good that these halachos go according to Rabbi Akiva? Meaning, how did Rabba interpret the brisa? Case 1 is talking about where you would have tweaked the neder. Case 2 is talking about where you would have tweaked the neder. And case 3 is talking about where you would not have tweaked the neder. Seifa b'may mukamla. How do we understand the seifa? Meaning, how do we understand the third case, the amar l'kolchem, where you don't tweak the neder? Basically, what the Gemara is going to be asking now is, if you're medayek in the lashon of the Mishnah, case 2 says that if the first person turned out to be your father, then hutra harishan hutar kulam. However, in case C, hutar ha'achroin mutar v'kulan asurin. What difference does it make whether the first one was your father or the last one was your father? Meiman shach. If the case is you would have tweaked the neder, so then even if it's the last one that's your father, hutar miktsasai hutar kulam. If you are not tweaking the neder, then even if the first one's your father, hutar miktsasai loy hutar kulam. So the Gemara says, Hai din hu rishain, v'hai din hu achrain. Who's the first one? Who's the last one? Meaning, what difference does it make whether the first one is the father or the last one is the father? What difference does it make? So, let's see the Ran. The Ran, Divrei Hamaschal, Amar Lecha Rava, Ularaba Minicha, Seifa b'maimukamla de Amar Lekolcha. Here we go. Kolaimar, what was the case of the Seifa? The third case, Kolaimar b'maimid, where you would not have tweaked the nether. Ukedaprecious, and like we explained, the Hachiv so, Haydin hu Rishon, Haydin hu Achron, which one is first and which one is last. Kolaimar, Hechi Shaykh lemisni, how is it possible to teach Rishon v'Achron? V'amai korile b'mitziasa Rishon, why do we talk about him in the middle case, in case B, as being the first, Uveseifa, and in case C, Achron, Havalei Lememar, B'tarvayu, it should have said by both of them, Hutter Echad Mehem. One of them. It's irrelevant whether it's the first one or the last one. Why would it matter if it's the first one or the last one? If the lumdus is in case B, it's Hutter Miktsasa Hutter Kula because you would have tweaked the nether, then even if it's the last one, Hutter Miktsasa Hutter Kula. If case C, we don't say Hutter Miktsasa Hutter Kula because you wouldn't have tweaked the nether, then why do we say the last one even if it's the first one? It's irrelevant which is the first or the last. So therefore the Gemara falls off of its original understanding in Rabbah, Ela Reisha de Amar Kolchem. In the Reisha, the case is, you say Kolchem. What does that mean? Meaning in case number one, that when you found out your father was there, it's talking about Kolchem. What does it mean, Kolchem? According to Rabbah, it's where you would have changed it to Lazeh Lazeh. And according to Rava, it's only with if you would have stayed with Kolchem. So case one is a classic case of Hoter Miktsasa Hoter Kula. In Rabbah, you would have tweaked it. In Rava, even if you would have kept it at Kolchem. Look at the Ran, El Reisha D'Amar L'Kolchem, Kolamer Bein L'Didi Bein L'Rabba, Reisha D'Amar L'Kolchem. And according to Rava, even if it's Mamid, in other words, you would not have tweaked it. And in Rava, you would not have tweaked it. In Rabbah, you would have tweaked it. And that's how that case we say, Hutter Miktsasai, Hutter Kulai. But case B and C is a completely different scenario. The Seifa, you know what case B and C is? The case B and C is Kagan Shetalan Zabazah. It's a specific scenario where you hinged one on the other. And you said, you made a neder on the first guy, you answered the first guy, Amar Ploini Kaploini. And you hinged so-and-so on so-and-so. In other words, first you said Ruvain, and then you said Shimon should be also like Ruvain, and then you said Levi should be also like Shimon, and then you said Yehuda should be also like Levi. And that's the case. So, therefore what? So if the first guy is mutter, turned out to be your father, then everyone's mutter. Because you only, if your father is Ruvain, you said, I asked her Ruvain, and Shimon should be like Ruvain, Levi should be like Shimon, and Yehuda should be like Levi. So if the first guy is your father, so then all the dominoes topple, because they're all dependent on the first one. It's like this, you're piling up a bunch of blocks on top of each other. If you pull out the bottom one, they all fall. If you pull out the top one, the rest of them remain standing. The scenario is you answered the first one. You said the 2 should be like 1, 3 should be like 2, 4 should be like 3, and so on and so forth. So if your father is number 1, they all topple. If your father is the last guy, they don't. The Amar Ploini Kaploini Uploini Kaploini. Dekanami, the proof is the Tanya, because we learned in a Brisa, Ha'emtsoi, if it was the middle guy, Heimen olamata mutar, from him and down they're mutar because they're all hinged on him. Ulamala asurman, from above him they're asur. So it's not a matter of any specific one. It's not any specific one. It's dafka, first and last. Let's see the Ran. Ella Reisha Da'amar L'Kolchem. Okay, we did that. V'Sefer Klamer Mitziyasa Ubasraisa, case 2 and 3. B'Shatalan Zeh B'Zeh. When you hinge them on each other. When you hinge them on each other. Ella Dil. But for me, Reisha B'Maimed. The Reisha is where you're... Case A, meaning now this is Rava talking. The case would be where you don't tweak it, and that's why it's only Hutter Miktsasai in Rabbi Akiva, Ula Rabba b'Meshana. And in Rabba, the case is where you deviate. And that's why, again, it's only the Rabbana and Rabbi Akiva say Hutter Miktsasai, Hutter Kulai. Okay, next question. Now we're going to talk about onions, because I think you ate a lot of onions over Pesach. I just get that feeling that you ate a lot of onions. Yeah? Sfardim have more options, but Ashkenazim are limited to potatoes and onions. Yeah? So here we go.
We get to eat more food, Rabbi.
What?
We get to eat more things.
There you go. Eisvei Ravina l'Rava. Ravina asked the question on Rava. Now we're going to have to see whether this is a question on Rabba also. Rabbi Nosson Amar. No, I'm sorry. Eisvei Rav Ada bar Ava l'Rav. Rav Ada bar Ava asked Rava. Koinam batzal shanitoyim. I asked her onions that I taste. Sha'batzal ra l'leiv. Onions are bad for the leiv, for the heart. Amrulay, they said, what do you mean? You don't know? Va'alei ha'kufri yafal leiv. Kufri onions are good for the heart. You didn't know this? It's a kind of onion. Hutar be'kufri. So he's mutter in kufri because he never meant to aser kufri. V'alei be'kufri b'vadot. He's not only mutter in kufri, el b'chol habet salam. He's really mutter in all onions. Onion Shabbat Miktsasai Batar Kula. Ma'isa Hoyve Tira Meir B'chal Habasam. There's a story, and Rabbi Meir permitted all onions. There's a story, and Rabbi Meir permitted all onions. Okay, so what's the case? My love isn't the case. Amar Ilu HaYisi Yadesha Kufri Yafalev. He says, if I would have known that onions are good for the heart, HaYisi Omer, I would have said, Kol habet salam asurin, all onions are aser, v'kufri mutter, meaning it's a case of ma'amid dvarav. And so let's think about that. What would Rava say in a case of kolchem? Beis Shammai holds that we don't say hutter miktsasai, hutter kulai, and Beis Hillel says that we do say hutter miktsasai, hutter kulai, right? If you look back in the Mishnah, Beis Shammai says we don't say hutter miktsasai, hutter kulai, and Beis Hillel says we do. Now, here, Rav Meir is mattering all the onions. What do we say in the Mishnah? Beis Shammai says hein mutaron umashe imohem asurim. So this is a question on Rava. Why is this a question on Rava? Rava was the one, if you look back on Chavav Amud Aleph, what did Rava say? Rava said that Beis Shammai holds like Reb Meir, Tafas Lashon Rishon. And therefore, by Kolchem, we don't say Hutter Miktsasai, Hutter Kulai. So Rava was the one who said in Beis Shammai that we don't say Hutter Miktsasai, Hutter Kulai. Why? Because Beis Shammai holds like Reb Meir. And here Reb Meir is saying Hutter Miktsasai, Hutter Kulai. But earlier Rava said that Reb Meir holds Hutter Miktsasai, Loi Hutter Kulai, because Tafas Lashon Rishon. We focus on the first thing you said. So what Reb Meir seems to hold here regarding Hutter Miktsasai, Hutter Kulai, which is that we do say it, is contradictory to what Rava said earlier in Reb Meir, that Reb Meir holds Hutter Miktsasai, Loi Hutter Kulai, because Tafas Lashon Rishon. Now, is this a question on Rabbah? If anything, it's a bigger kasha on Rabbah, because Rabbah holds, if you say, I would have said kolchem, no one in their right mind would say hoter miksasai, hoter kulai. So it's a much bigger question on Rabbah. Why are we asking the question on Rava? It seems like we're asking in Rava, because in Rava, it's a stira directly in the way he interpreted Rabbi Meir. Let's take a look at the Ran. Eisvei Rav Ada l'Rava, Kalaimar, V'kasha l'Rava, the Amra b'Maimid pligi. Rava says they argue about Maimid. They argue by Kolchem, Umuki Beishamai Krameir, he establishes Beishamai like Krameir, Umid Inhu Krameir, the fact that he made Beishamai go like Rameir, Mashna the Rameir, Nami Sfer like Kvaser, that's Mashma, the Rameir also holds like him. The Aviv Mutter, that his father's Mutter, V'kulan Asur, and they're all Asur. V'kan hitter Rameir kal habesam. And here, Rameir mattered all the onions. Says Aran, V'koshikein the kasha l'Rabba. It's even bigger question on Rabbah, the Amar, because Rabbah holds that by Mamid, Divrei Akol Kulu Asurin. Everyone holds that they're Asur. Va'aviv mutter, and we don't say Hoter Miksasai. Dimkein Rameir Shehiter Kala B'Tsalam, the Amar Kaman. Who would Rameir go like? So it's a bigger kasha on Rabbah. In Rabbah, the question is, well, the way this Brisa is interpreting Rabbi Meir is not consistent with how Rava interpreted Rabbi Meir earlier. Rava interpreted Rabbi Meir earlier that we don't say Hoter Miksasa Hoter Kula, and here Rava is interpreting Rabbi Meir that we do say Hoter Miksasa Hoter Kula. But in Rabbah, it's a much bigger kasha. In Rabbah, if you say you would not have tweaked the neder and you still would have said Kulchem, no one in their right mind says Hoter Miksasa Hoter Kula. And Elamishum dahach masisin Tani Rameir behedya, since this Brisa teaches Rameir explicitly for Rava who the idkore the Rameir, and Rava is one who mentions Rameir. Actually, the Rava, it mentions it. It asks in Rava. Answers the Gemara lie. You know what the case is? It's not where you would have said Kolchem. If you would have said Kolchem, Rameir holds lie bata mitzasai. Lie ba amar ilo yisi adesha kufri yafa leiv. If I would have known that kufri is good for the heart, I would have said batzel pleni asurin. This and this onion is asur. The kufri mutter, and kufri is mutter. And since you would have tweaked the neder, Rava would say, even Reb Meir, who holds that tafas lashon rishon, here he would say hutter miksasai, hutter kulai. And likewise, if you would have tweaked the neder, there are opinions that Hoter Miksasei, Hoter Kula, and Rabbah. For Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Meir could fit Alibud Rabbi Akiva v'Alibud Rabbanan, according to Rabbi Akiva and according to the Rabbanan. Let's see the Ran. The Ran says, what the Gemara could have answered is, true Beishamai holds like Rabbi Meir, that tafas lashon rishon, avo Rabbi Meir loisfer kavaseh. Rabbi Meir doesn't hold like him. He holds like Beis Hillel, and he holds that even by Maimid, Hoter Miksasai, Hoter Kulai, Dinehida Amra Meir, Tafas Lashon Rishon. That's when you say Tafas Lashon Rishon when there's a contradiction. Kishasoiser Ze'ezeh. Ka'ila Ukishlamim. But if it's not a contradiction, then maybe Rabbi Meir would say, Bigmar Dvar of Adam Nekvas. But since we're asking based on the idea that Rabbi Meir holds like Beis Shammai, the Gemara answers, we're not talking about Maimid, we're talking about Mishana. And therefore, according to Rabbi Meir goes like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi doesn't hold that Beis Shammai is locked into Rabbi Meir. So therefore, Rabbi Meir could hold like Rabbi Akiva. And according to Rava, where you were talking about you would have tweaked your words, then Rabbi Meir could hold like everybody. So in other words, Rabbi Meir, it goes like Rabbi Akiva and like the Rabbanan. That's in the Shita of Rava. In the Shita of Rava, Rabbi Meir could go like Rabbi Akiva and like the Rabbanan. But according to Rabba never said Beis Shammai holds like Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir holds like Rabbi Akiva. And he would say, Neder Shabbat lo miksasa batar kula. So that we're up to Esvei, Ravina l'Rava, and that we will do Be'ez Hashem next week. Okay? We're going to actually hold it over here. How do you like that? Shkoyach, everyone.
Rob, thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you back. Good to see you.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.